Hey guys, Stephen Bogren here from Pro Physique, and today I want to talk about whether or not you're building or losing muscle. So what's up, guys? Hope everybody's having a great Monday. It's our chance to set the tone for the week, right? It's our chance to say we're going to have a great fucking week or we're going to have a shitty week. And it's our chance to just sort of get perspective and allow ourselves to really decide what kind of week we want to have. What kind of week do you want to have? I want to have a great week. So let's talk about something fun, and that's whether or not we're building or losing muscle. Now, obviously, I think it makes sense to talk about this from a nutritional aspect, so that's where I'm going to start. Nutritionally speaking, are we building or losing muscle? Well, it all comes down to something that we like to call net protein balance. Net protein balance. I would put that on the screen, but I'm too lazy to edit it, so I'm not going to. So, when we talk about net protein balance, essentially what we're talking about is how much muscle we're building, how much muscle we're breaking down, and then how that ends at the end of the day, right? So we're either in a positive net protein balance, meaning we built more muscle than we broke down, or we're in a negative net protein balance, meaning we broke down more protein than we built or repaired or whatever, right? So if we want to be building muscle, we have to be in a positive net protein balance. Now, there's a couple of things that we can do to help with that. And so the big things, nutritionally speaking, that are going to affect our net protein balance are ingestion of protein, woo, who would have thought, and ingestion of carbohydrates, right? So those are going to be the main components of what affects our net protein balance. Now, let's start with protein. How does protein affect our net protein balance? Well, when we eat enough protein, right? Big bet being leucine, going to be one of the big indicators here for if we've had enough. So hitting our leucine threshold, typically if you're eating about 30 grams of protein per meal, complete proteins, you're going to be fine. You're going to be hitting your leucine threshold. Now, the amount of protein that you need is going to be based on your lean body mass, and so it's going to be different for like somebody like me, who is about 185 pounds, versus somebody who is 110 pounds, right? There you don't have to have as much protein per meal to be hitting that protein threshold and leucine threshold to tell the body, hey, spike, let's build new protein, okay? And so eating protein, yes, absolutely, that's part of it. Now, you're gonna say, well, I'm just gonna fucking eat a shit ton of protein, I'm gonna eat it all the time. Not necessarily more beneficial. What we have is something called the refractory period theory, right? And so what that says is we can spike muscle protein synthesis nutritionally by eating protein, right? By eating enough protein and getting enough of complete amino acids, getting enough leucine, we can say, okay, the body's going to be signaled to let's build muscle. Now, proteins get broken down into amino acids in the bloodstream, great, and that's what signals that. Boom, awesome, sweet. So, problem being, what we've seen is amino acid levels in the bloodstream need to return down to baseline before it can be spiked again. So typically what I tell everybody is you need an absolute minimum of 3 hours in between protein feedings to essentially assess and make that refractory period theory work. What's really, truly realistic for most people is have somewhere between 4 to 6 hours in between your protein feedings, right? If you're getting 3 or 4 protein feedings in a day, you're probably doing pretty good, right? So the whole 6 meals a day, small proteins, small meals, kind of bogus, at least in my understanding, with protein synthesis, refractory period theory, and needing your amino acid levels in the bloodstream to come back down. So, lots of big fucking words there, lots of scientific talk. Simply put, eat decent amounts of protein. 30 grams of protein, probably going to be fine. If you're a female, you're probably going to be fine with 25 grams of protein per meal, right? If you're a bigger individual, you have more lean muscle tissue, you probably may want to err on the side of going even higher than that, right? So, eat protein meals, probably space them out about 4 hours apart or so, and you're probably in a pretty good spot to be maximizing, or at least close to maximizing, the amount of muscle protein synthesis you're getting nutritionally from proteins. Okay? Now, what about carbohydrates? Because I obviously said carbohydrates have a role to play. So, in terms of how much muscle you're building, protein. that affects that. That means I can build more protein throughout the day. I'm going to build more muscle. Muscle protein synthesis goes up. Good stuff. Now, carbohydrates are going to have a direct impact on the amount of muscle protein breakdown that you have, right? Because we are at all times burning all types of energy substrates, right? So we're burning proteins, we're burning fats, we're burning carbs. Now, how much of that we're burning is going to be dependent on our activity level, our diet, all that other good stuff. So how does carbohydrates affect how much protein we break down? Well, eating carbohydrates gives us more free-floating fuel, glucose, excuse me. It also increases our glycogen stores, which can help prevent protein breakdown in terms of need for energy, right? So instead of having no carbohydrates maybe, and we're breaking down more protein because there's an energy demand that needs to be met, we now can use carbohydrates for that energy demand, right? We can meet the demand and the need with carbohydrates, and therefore don't have to break down as much protein for it. So carbohydrates go from, so maybe we had a net protein breakdown of here pre-carbohydrates, maybe it's here. So at the end of the day, we want protein synthesis as high as possible, protein breakdown as low as possible, so that at the end of the day, we meet here, we're still in a positive net protein balance, okay? That means we have built more muscle than we have broken down that day, hopefully, right? Now, again, this perfect world, you get to make all the muscle and you don't lose any, and it's great, sweet. However, you know, as we all know, the longer you've been in this lifestyle, the harder it is to get gains and the more diminishing returns you get. So what's the other mechanism of how we build muscle? Well, it's your training. It's your training. And I've definitely seen studies out there that have shown that 2 sets of 8 at a working set is a minimal amount, and that, boom, we get muscle protein synthesis through that, right? So now, is more better? Yes, yes it is. We see that more sets is going to give you a higher percentage of muscle protein synthesis or new muscle building than less sets. Yes, absolutely, we know that. However, at some point, we're going to pass over the point where we can no longer recover from that, right? So a lot of us are like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm so sore, I got a great workout in. Soreness is not always a good indicator of muscle growth, okay? So if you're living sore all the time, you're probably doing a little bit too much, right? Maybe we should be sore when we, you know, start a new training block, or when we up volume, or when we incorporate new movement pattern things, right? Yeah, we should absolutely be sore. At some point though, our soreness should be very manageable, okay? So you have to be very careful about going too far, overtraining, and then you're not getting any results, right? Because yes, when we are working out, we are doing damage to our muscles, right? We're creating micro tears in the muscles. That's what that delayed onset muscle soreness is. It's also micro tears, right? It's not lactic acid. That's built out of your system in like, what, 8 hours? So it's not lactic acid. It's not lactate, okay? It's the fact that we've done damage to our muscle tissue. It has to be repaired, okay? So making sure that we're, one, training. I like to train every 48 hours or so. So, you know, not every other day, but maybe every 3rd day. So I'm going to train a muscle group typically 2 times a week. I might add some accessory stuff in there. So maybe I didn't really hit some adductors or adductors throughout the week really, or they only got semi-hit when I squat, you know. Maybe because I feel like they need a little bit more attention, I'll add them on to an accessory day, right? But if I train legs on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm not going to train legs specifically again. I'm going to wait till Thursday. I'm going to give my body more than enough time to recover, right? Recovery being the main name of the game here in terms of my training stuff, right? I want to trigger muscle protein synthesis. Studies have shown that it can be triggered for up to 48 hours after training. So I don't need to train again within that 48-hour period, right? Safe bet. Not only is that going to keep me from doing more muscle damage, right? But if I'm training on sore muscles and fatigued muscles, my likelihood for injury also goes up. So that's it. That's all I got. I'm talking about, are you gaining muscle? Are you losing muscle? It becomes very, very simple when we look at it about net protein balance. There's a lot of ways to sort of assess that, and it gets really scientific and annoying. So I'm going to spare you from those. But pay attention to the big things that are going to help you to grow better. Make sure you're getting enough protein. If you're in a growing stage, make sure you're getting enough carbohydrates, and make sure that your training is on point. So that's it, guys. That's all I got. And if you're keto, this video doesn't fucking matter to you, now does it?